All right, so put away your calculators and let's see how much basic math you actually remember. Because if you remember all those basic math skills that you once learned, you should be able to easily solve this problem without the aid of a calculator. All right, so let's take a look at the problem. We have parentheses 1/4 minus 1/2 and parentheses divided by parentheses 2/5 minus 1 and parentheses. Now we do have a multiple choice question here, and let's take a look at our answers. So A is 5/12, B is 2/7, C is 10, and D is 1/5. Once again, no calculators, but if you can figure this out, go ahead and put your answer into the comment section. I'll share the correct answer in just 1 second. Then, of course, I'm going to solve this problem step by step. But before we get started, let me quickly introduce myself. My name is John, and I have been teaching middle and high school math for decades. And if you need help learning math, check out my math help program at tcmathacademy.com. You can find a link to that in the description below. And if this video helps you out, or if you just enjoy this content, make sure to like and subscribe, as that definitely helps me out. All right, so one more time, here is our problem. So clearly we're going to have to know a thing or two about fractions. So let's go ahead and just take a quick look at it. And by the way, when you're doing this problem, I would definitely encourage you to get a piece of paper and a pencil and take your time. There is no kind of rush to, figure out the right answer. So we have 1/4 minus 1/2, all of that in parentheses, divided by parentheses 2/5 minus 1 and parentheses. All right, so let's take a look at the correct answer. The correct answer is A, 5/12. Now, if you got this right, you definitely get a happy face, an A plus, a 100%, and a certificate of excellence for your achievement in basic mathematics. That is fantastic. But for those of you that maybe didn't get the right answer, don't get discouraged because you probably forgot a lot of this stuff. And, for me, I was learning basic arithmetic way back in the 1970s, right? So for some of you, maybe it was the 1960s, 50s. It's a long time. And if you're not doing this stuff on a daily basis, you're going to forget. All right, so here is our problem. And obviously, we can just get our calculators out and just do the work, but that's not going to really tell us anything. It's just going to tell us that we know how to use a calculator. What we need to do here is understand what's going on in this problem. But before we even get into that, if you are a math student and you run into a multiple choice question, the worst thing you can do is leave it blank. At least take a chance and be like, I don't know, I think the answer is 10. Well, you have a 1 out of 4 chance. So this is a pro tip, or just like common sense, right? Never leave a math question blank, right? Even if you have to guess, it's perfectly fine. There's only few exceptions where you don't want to guess because you will get penalized for the wrong answer. And that's like on tests like the SAT or ACT. But in general, never leave a math question blank. All right, but obviously the best strategy here is to simply know the math. Now, what math are we talking about? Well, we're talking about basic mathematics. We don't see any variables, no equations here. So we clearly need to know a thing or two about fractions. Okay, we also have division and we have subtraction here. We do have some parentheses, so we have different mathematical operators. Okay, so we're going to have to know about fractions. We're going to have to know how to deal when we have different mathematical operations. And we're also going to need to know something about positive and negative numbers. All right, so let's go ahead and just kind of talk about the skill sets that are going to be required in order to do this problem. So the first is the order of operations. The next is fractions, and the next is positive and negative numbers. So I'll show you, how each of these comes into play in just 1 second. But let's do a quick review of the order of operations, and that's this lovely acronym right here, PEMDAS. All right, so here is a great little phrase you can remember this PEMDAS by. That is, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. Once again, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. I don't know who came up with that phrase. Maybe it was Aunt Sally, so we thank her for her cool little phrase. But in mathematics, when you have more than one operation, so if I have like 2 plus 7, there's only one thing to do. But if I have like 2 plus 7 divided by 3, well, now I have two things to do. Let's take a look at this simple example right here. So if I have 10 divided by 5 times 2, what is the answer? Now, a lot of you are going to be shocked that you're going to get this problem wrong. Okay, so without a calculator, what is the answer? Okay, so some of you are going to say, all right, Mr. YouTube Math Man, let me see here. 5 times 2, that's 10. So 10 divided by 10 is 1. The answer is 1. Well, unfortunately, that is incorrect. Okay, now I really got your attention. You're saying, what are you talking about? You know, that is right. Well, no, no, no. What if we did the problem this way? 10 divided by 5, right? Well, 10 divided by 5 is what? Well, 10 divided by 5 is 2, okay? So if we take that 2 times this 2 right here, well, 2 times 2 is 4, right? So 10 divided by 5, we did the division first is 2, and then we did the multiplication second. Here, we did the multiplication first, and then the division second, right? So why do we do the division first? Why is this correct? The correct answer here is 4, not 1. Okay, now this is going to be very frustrating for a lot of you because you didn't really learn or you forgot the proper order of operations. That's what we need to understand even in a simple problem like this. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about why the answer here is 4 and not 1, and then we'll move on to the rest of this problem. Okay, so let me get rid of this little crazy face there. You know, I like to have fun when I'm doing my little YouTube videos and make things very informal. All right, so a quick explanation of the order operations is basically this. So again, when you have a math problem with more than one mathematical operation, a mathematical operator is things like addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, and even parentheses and powers. You got to follow this checklist from left to right. So the first thing is P. If there's any parentheses or brackets, these are what we call grouping symbols in your problem, you need to start there, okay? And you're going to start with the innermost parentheses. If you have parentheses, sometimes you will not, but if you do, you start with the parentheses. Now the next thing is E, and that is powers, okay? Now it really stands for exponents. So if I have 2 to the third power, this little 3 up here is what we call the exponent. The 2 down here is the base. The entire thing is a power. So if you have any powers in your problem, you're going to address that next. Now, the next thing you have to do, this is very confusing, and this is going to be basically the explanation for why some of you got this basic math problem wrong here, is the following. So we have M, D, A, and S. So M stands for multiplication, D stands for division, A stands for addition, and S stands for subtraction. So some of you might be saying, MS2 Math Man, look, your own checklist says do multiplication next. Well, that's not the way this checklist works, okay? It works this way. You're going to do multiplication or division, whatever you see first from left to right. So here, going back to a problem, I had 10 divided by 5 times 2, right? 10 divided by 5 times 2. What do I see first from left to right? I see division, then multiplication. Now, if I had multiplication over here and then division, I would do multiplication, okay? All right, so addition and subtraction works the same way. So that is a quick review of the order of operations. All right, so the next thing is fractions. There's a lot to know about fractions, how to add, subtract, multiply, and divide, and then positive and negative numbers. Now, I'm not going to make this video into a full lesson on all of these things, but I did want to address the order of operations as this is a really common source of confusion. And if you want to relearn basic math, I'll give you some great suggestions here in a second. But let's go ahead and get into the problem right now, and we want to keep all these skills in mind. Now, here are PEMDAS. We're going to ask ourselves, hey, do we have any parentheses? Clearly we do, so we're going to start inside of these two parentheses. It doesn't make a difference if you start in with this one or this one because these are basically two separate problems. So now we're going to be talking about fractions, right? How do we subtract fractions? And let's go ahead and get into it right now. Now, I don't want to slow this video down too much and explain this, but let's go ahead and subtract 1/4 minus 1/2 and 2/5 minus 1. So hopefully you remember how to subtract fractions. It's the same way you add fractions. Remember, if I have 1/5 plus 3/5, I can add these fractions because the denominators are the same. What we do is add the top numbers, the numerators, so that's 1 plus 3 or 4/5. But if you don't have the same denominators, well, we're going to have to fix that up and find the lowest common denominator. All right, now one thing excuse me, one thing that we want to do is just focus in on this problem first. And here, notice that we have our fractions with an angled fraction bar. Okay, 1/4 minus 1/2. It's perfectly fine if you like to write your fractions with an angled fraction bar, but I'm going to encourage you to kind of get away from this and write your fractions with a horizontal fraction bar like this. This is a more appropriate when you get into things like algebra. Okay, so when you're dealing with algebraic fractions, we don't really write this, you don't really use the angle fraction bar. So try to write your fractions this way. All right, so let's go ahead and do this problem here first. So 1/4 minus 1/2. Well, we cannot add or subtract fractions that don't have the same denominator. So here we need to find the lowest common denominator. Now, if you don't remember how to add or subtract fractions again, I will give you some suggestions here in a second. But the lowest common denominator is the lowest number that both 4 and 2 can divide into without a remainder. So hopefully you're saying, hey, Mr. YouTube Math Man, I know that the LCD here is 4 because 4 is the lowest number that both 4 and 2 can divide into without a remainder. Now, this is a big, big topic. What is the LCD? How to find it? But we're just doing a quick, simple, explanation of the LCD. All right, so the LCD, the lowest common denominator is 4. That means that we want to have both fractions here have the denominator as 4. Well, this one already has a 4, so all we have to do is fix up this fraction right here that has a 2 and turn this 2 into a 4. So how do I turn a 2 into a 4? Easy, just multiply it by 2. But if I'm going to multiply the denominator by 2, I have to multiply the numerator by 2. So this fraction now becomes 2/4. When you're multiplying fractions, by the way, you just multiply the respective numerators and denominators. All right, so 1/2 is the same thing as the fraction 2/4. So now we have fractions here that have the same denominator. Okay, so what do? Well, now we get to subtract the numerators. We got to be very careful here because now we're going to be subtracting 1 minus 2/4, and we're going to end up with a negative number. So 1 minus 2 is the same thing as, okay, well, let me just draw it this way or write it out this way. 1 minus 2 is the same thing as 1 plus -2. And for those of you that forgot how to add positive and negative numbers, I like to kind of use money as a simple way to kind of help you remember how to get the right answer. So a positive number is like you have money. A negative value is like you owe money, all right? Now, we could take a subtraction situation and turn it into a negative situation like this. So again, I'm trying to cover a lot of territory. So our problem here, 1 minus 2, is the same thing as 1 plus -2. So let's suppose I have 1 plus -$2, right? -$2. So what does -$2 mean? It means like you owe $2, right? Maybe you borrowed some money from your friend and you owe them $2, but you only have $1. So what are you going to do? Because you're such a good friend, you're going to be like, hey, I'm going to give you my dollar, and you still owe them $1, right? So the answer, 1 plus -2 is -1. All right, so that is our numerator. So we have -1/4. So our answer is -1/4. All right, so you can kind of just judge for yourself, what you need to review, whether it's the order of operations, fractions, whatever the case is, make a little checklist and say, okay, well, I need to brush up on this, that, or the other thing. Okay, so let's do this second fraction here. We have 2/5 minus 1. So 2/5 minus 1, again, we're going to write it our fractions with the horizontal fraction bar. So some of you might be really good with fractions. You can just see the right answer. But here, you might be saying, well, this is not a fraction by itself. Well, anytime you want to think of a number as a fraction, like say 7, you just put it over 1, and now you can see a numerator and a denominator. So I could just put that 1/1. Now, we're looking at the denominators. Well, you can see we don't have the same denominator. So what's the lowest number that both 5 and 1 divide into without a remainder? Well, it is 5. Okay, so 5 is the LCD. So this already has 5 as LCD. So we need to change this 1 to a 5. So we simply multiply the numerator and denominator by 5. Excuse me, and we're going to come up with 2/5 minus 5/5. All right, so let's go ahead and subtract the numerators. And 2 minus 5, here again, it's going to be the same thing as 2 plus -5, which is -3. So that second fraction is -3/5. Okay, so now we're down to the following. We did the parentheses first. Remember, we're following PEMDAS, so we did what was inside each parenthesis. We ended up with negative 1/4 here and negative 3/5 here, but we have to divide these two fractions. So we're going to have to talk about dividing fractions. So this is effectively our problem at this stage in the game. All right, so how do we divide fractions? Well, this is actually quite easy. So let's go and take the next step, which of course is have you quickly subscribe to my YouTube channel. Now, what I'm doing here is really reviewing basic math skills. And don't feel bad if you're getting anything wrong. My channel is not about making anyone feel bad about their current math skills. And a lot of you out there learn this stuff, but you just forgot this material. And I'm going to give you two courses. You can find links to these courses in the description of this video that can really help you kind of relearn basic math and much, much more. But my channel is all about encouraging people to stick with math and try to make math clear and understandable. Okay, but I need your help to reach as many people as possible. So the best way you can support my channel is to hit that subscribe button. And if you're going to do that, hit that notification bell as well so you can get my latest videos. All right, so let me tell you how you can improve and master basic mathematics. So the first course I would highly recommend is my Math Foundations course. You're going to find all this basic stuff in there, and this is really going to give you a super strong foundation. You're going to cover everything that you learned back in primary and elementary school up to about the beginning of, let's say, middle school. Okay, this is the math that's in this Math Foundations course, and it's a quick course. It's only 3 chapters. Super great course. A lot of people take this course, but if you want to take it a step further and relearn basic math, but you're interested in algebra, geometry, maybe some trigonometry and probability and statistics, well then check out my Math Skills Rebuilder course, right? So these are 2 great courses for those of you that are not in a particular math class, but some of you out there might be taking like pre-algebra or algebra. You can find those courses in the description as well. All right, so let's get back to this problem now. So here we have to understand how to divide fractions. So how do we divide fractions? Actually, this is quite easy. What we're going to do is actually change the problem from division to multiplication, right? So we're going to go from a division problem, and of course that's what we have here, to a multiplication problem. Now, how are we going to do that? This is quite easy. So we're going to go from division to multiplication by flipping the fraction to the right of the division operator. So the fraction to the right of the division operator is negative 3/5. So we just got to flip this upside down and this becomes multiplication. This operation becomes multiplication. So now we have negative 1/4 times negative 5/3, and this is very easy to calculate. All right, so when you divide fractions, you're going to flip the fraction to the right of the division sign and then multiply. All right, so how do you multiply fractions? Very easy. All we have to do is literally multiply the respective numerators and denominators. Now, something that confuses a lot of people is negative fractions. Now, first of all, we just want to recognize that we're talking about a negative number times another negative number. So when you're multiplying positive and negative numbers, a negative times a negative is positive, okay? Or a positive times a positive is positive. When the signs are the same, okay, and you're multiplying or dividing, the answer is positive. If the signs are different, the answer is negative. This is the same rule for division as well. So negative times a positive is negative. So we know that the answer here is going to be a positive fraction. So you can kind of just think of these negative numbers, or just drop the negative sign if you want. But if you're confused and saying, hey, Mr. YouTube Math Man, is this negative sign go with the numerator? In other words, let me just kind of write this out because this is a very confused part of working with positive and negative fractions, right? Or negative fractions. So we have negative 1/4. Is this the same thing as negative 1/4 or 1/-4? Well, these are all equivalent mathematically, but if you want to think of the negative sign with either with the numerator or denominator, I'm going to suggest putting that negative sign in the numerator. Okay, this is going to help you out in other type of problems, especially in algebra. But let's go ahead and actually just multiply. So we have negative 1 times negative 5. That's going to be a positive 5. That's our numerator. And then 4 times 3 is, of course, 12. So we're going to end up with 5/12 as our final answer. All right, so hopefully, excuse me, you remember all this stuff from your basic math courses. Let's go back and just take a look at all these things that you do study in basic math. Order of operations, this is what we kind of quickly reviewed. PEMDAS, right? Fractions, there's a lot to know about fractions. I didn't even kind of really get into mixed number fractions, how to reduce fractions, how to find the LCD. There's a lot here. Place value, right? Like 3/10, 4/10, how to write a decimal as a fraction, number operations, how to just basically add, subtract, multiply, divide, how to add, subtract, multiply decimals, how to handle percent prompts, how to handle positive and negative number situations. So, never kind of just think to yourself, especially for those of you that want to learn more advanced math like algebra, like, yeah, basic math is easy. Well, no, you got to give it its due respect. And if you don't practice these skills, you're going to forget a lot of this stuff. But hopefully, this video helps you out. And if that's the case, don't forget to like and subscribe. And with that being said, I definitely wish you all the best in your math adventures. Thank you for your time and have a great day.